But does, the term that's always been paired with that is low income. Anywhere within the definition of PDA, does it mandate that it must be low income housing?
There's a what I understand is that the way those intersect, and I'm sure this is really rough, is that there become incentives to, there are different tax incentives or other types of incentives that are given to developers if you qualify. I mean, there's something we can talk, we're talking about a transit priority project, which is something that's almost, it has its incredibly, the CEQA requirements are either streamlined or if you qualify exempt from them. And that is, to be exempt from the CEQA requirements under that, one of the things is if you have a certain number or percentage of affordable housing. And I think 20%, I think the county policy is 20% of any new,
so there's nothing within PDA itself that mandates that it be low income?
No. Well, I don't know if that's correct.
It absolutely does, yeah.
PDA mandates low income.
Everything they build has, you have to build, whatever the percentage is, you have to build it. And Strawberry is not alone here. The whole Bay Area is doing exactly what you're doing. Danville, Orinda, Palo Alto, Mountain View, San Carlos, they're all, and by the way, this is on the internet. This is across the country. These streets with no cars, sidewalks, happy kids, and wonderful. I'm a native of the Belt, I love the place, but this is happening all over the country, and you're not alone. They want you to think that you're alone. I think Strawberry's going to be treated with gentler hands because of just the logistics and the geography. But this is going on everywhere. It's going on in Orinda. They're fighting it, and they're up against 5 supervisors and 5 councilmen in every city who are carrying the water for MTC ABAG, SB 375, and AB 32, and all the developers and the people.
And I think the large issue, which you're saying, I think the large issue is Stacy started to talk about in terms of going back to this handy cheat sheet, glossary of terms, CEQA and EIR. What are these things? You'll hear these terms tossed around a lot. These are the regulations.
I don't think that's what he was saying.
What's that?
I don't think that's what he was saying. The question is, where is Sears on this issue?
Well,
She won't put us on the agenda right now. We showed up.
That's inexcusable that she doesn't do that.
Well, I wrote to her last week on my own, not representing any other, any particular organization, but what happened, when we found out about all these things started happening with the PDAs and Plan Bay area passing July 19th. When Marinwood and I think Tam Alamonte were putting the pressure on, I saw on the Board of Supervisors agenda that the next week it was slated to be removed, and there was a staff report that had already been prepared that said, we approve. So I circulated that, and then I said, we need to get out of here. If they're all out, we don't want to be the last PDA standing. We didn't volunteer for this. You don't have the community support. You don't get money for the infrastructure no matter how many people are coming because it's voluntary. That's the thing here. It's like that these groups don't have the power to make you do this. They can try and throw carrots and prod you one way or another, but it's a voluntary program.
Has Sears indicated how she's going to vote on this?
She won't respond to my emails. I asked to be put on the agenda, and I said we showed up. There were hundreds of letters that went to the Board of Supervisors for that July meeting, and there were probably 25 or at least 25 people from Strawberry that spoke out. And they said, we can't hear this because you're not on the agenda. They are right. That was the first time it was raised in public comment, most likely. And under the Brown Act, that's correct. It's been raised now, though. And so I said, hey, you saw the petition signed by over 550 people we went out of the PDA, and that was put together in a week. And that was during the July 4th holiday when people were traveling. That's what you're getting. Put us on the agenda because I want to know where she stands on it. And what I heard secondhand was that Supervisor Kinsey, I believe, acknowledged, this is a voluntary program and the local community has to support it because the local community is paying for it in many ways. And whether it's affordable housing or regular, or market housing, it's going to be an impact on the community. And what I understand is whether you're a PDA or not, the county doesn't have to have a PDA. Interestingly, other than San Rafael's downtown little small area, no other city in Marin County is opted to be a PDA. or to have a PDA in any part of it, even though it's come up.
It's in their general, every city has a general plan, they have a consultant, they have a city planner, they're sitting there as we speak, they're putting this in your city plan, it's going in the county plan, there's a planner sitting in the room here. Wade Holland opened the meeting and now said it wasn't about one Bay Area, that if you're here for that reason, you're here for the wrong reason, and then they proceeded to discuss these 17 PDAs that have to go into Marin County, and they're scrambling around, where can we shuffle them, because people aren't, there's going to be less pushback here, it's political, all 5 of those people are in favor of this thing, guaranteed. All 6, 7 members of the Planning Commission are in favor of this thing. You don't have a friend in city government with this one Bay Area thing, and if you think you do, you know,
He's
mandated
right.
because of
Wade
funds,
Holland
it's
is from the
because
west
of funds.
side.
it's a
And you
federal
will never
funding.
get this in the west side where Wade Holland lives.
But
Okay,
I also
I can
want to make
guarantee
sure
you,
that,
you're right.
I want to make sure that we continue to talk about the broader issue, which is if a PDA is passed, what does that mean for you? And so I want Stacy to talk a little bit about CEQA and EIR and what these terms mean and what they mean to us.
The
Because
broader issue is you need a new supervisor.
Now, let's keep focused here.
Well,
we may determine that as a group, but I think right now we really need to, as a courtesy to the people who come here, to try to continue our mission, which is to educate you as much as we can from the work that we have done on what the issues are, give you information, and then hopefully come to consensus so we can act. But right now, if we give a little bit of patience so we can finish this presentation, so people have the language and an understanding to be able to articulate and come to your own conclusions about this.
and there might be pressure from other sources, I mean, I'm sure there are, but there was I mean, I'm not trying to undercut whatever pressure there is, but the fact is to go for this condensed, clustered, high-density housing, that it is voluntary, and there was a letter that was written to Supervisor Adams on July 2nd, 2013, from the powers that be, that said the County Board of Supervisors can at any time modify or eliminate all or part of the potential Highway 101 PDA. It could, for instance, submit more detailed maps, etc. As we have stated from the outside, Plan Bay Area is locally driven. We rely on local city and county jurisdictions to tell the regional planning agencies where they want to see additional housing, etc., and development focused. As part of the implementation, they have these windows, but basically what she summed up and she said, finally, let me reiterate that local land uses are determined by locally approved general plans, and there's no the PDA designation doesn't require it, which is true, but the fact is it's happening on another front, and so it's going to hit us in that next stage sooner rather than later. But if they want to change it, she said, if anytime you want to alter or eliminate any part of the potential PDA area along Highway 101, we would be happy to honor that request.
And where did that come
This is from the Plan Bay Area people. Because I guess what happened is there was information that was said, well, we don't know if we can get out. You can get out, it's voluntary. And there are plenty of areas throughout the 9 Bay Area counties that don't have any of these because they're already developed. It's not this the urbanized high, 3, 4, 5 stories, however high it would or could go. The 3 stories, I think, the minimum. But there's density bonuses and there's other things, and then there's variances. There's going to be continued pressure once you're at that stage to kind of dump more and more and more. Is that, sorry.
And again, this solution may be appropriate somewhere else.
No.
You can imagine that this would not make a big difference in the term urbanized. We chuckle a little bit at that, but if you were in San Francisco, if you were in Oakland, and you were in a very high density area to begin with. So I think one of the things, and we definitely want to answer people's questions, but one of the things that will happen as a result of the PDA being finalized is that the CEQA restrictions and the EIR regulations will be reduced. They have a different set of requirements under the PDA for these things than they do under a non-PDA status, which is how does this affect you? Your voice that you're used to having, and communities, the way development typically works is developers come to the community, they say, I'd like to do this, here are all the great reasons that you should let me in, and the communities tend to weigh this. The onus is on the developer to help convince the community why it's a good thing.
No, they bring
Once the
their
PDA
lawyer, he's gonna bring his lawyer. This is, it's in the county plan.
Let them talk. I appreciate what you're trying to say, but it would be really helpful if we can just hear the
Once
rest
the
of it.
PDA goes into effect, it is our understanding that the tables are reversed. That the developers, so long as they are meeting these criteria, which is compact, high-density housing that they want to develop, so long as they're doing that, the burden then shifts to our community to explain why they shouldn't come. And our community not only has to provide the burden of proof, our community is liable.
And Napa County has settled a big lawsuit based on, the developer, if you kind of are in this designation and the zoning's in place, you don't have the same CEQA. And there's two types of the CEQA streamlining and exemptions in it. There's one, and these are all in SB 375, which was enacted, it is law. And the one is for residential projects that are consistent with the Sustainable Communities, or the SCS, and for you're in a PDA. The other is something that we're going to try and segue into a little bit. It's the transportation priority projects. And so there's two issues. And when I wrote the letter or the email to the board, I asked for, we want out of both of these designations. The transit priority project, which is actually has even less CEQA review, and potentially it's exempt if you meet certain requirements. But there's a lot more to this, and the things you're saying and that I'm hearing are things I've seen this too in these documents.
I'd like to hear it too.
I think I cut him off.
Yeah, am I sensing, or am I ignorant here? Are we all here because we all support this removal? Or are we trying to justify getting it removed?
Well, I think,
Because
John,
I think there's a lot of people here that can help brainstorm on how to get it out of here, and just talking about things that might not work. Let's use the brain power we have here to get everyone on the best track. I'm supportive of getting this off the PDA, and if everybody here is supportive, let's get our brains together to focus.
One thought I had.
I'm sensing you suggesting a path, and then others saying that's not going to work. Here's what we got to do. Let's hear everybody. Let's hear the brains.
And
out here.
I'm sorry, and I think we're trying to get a fairly short information session, Jan. I don't disagree with you, but I think we're just trying to make sure.
I think you understand, we have your
I'm
point.
pretty much
Yeah,
wrapped
we're
up
the
the
fast-
information
we're
that I
supportive.
wanted to
We're the
say.
fast reading group here.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you know what? That's terrific, because what I did want to say, because you asked a question about the low-income housing, there's a regional housing needs allocation, the RNHA, that comes down. The county's still going to have the same obligations that they have. They're just going to have to do those projects
So let me ask
how they are now and
a
consistent.
corollary question, because I'm not certain I'm against PDA, and what I'm wondering is whether there's a compromise position. So what I've read about, I'm not in favor of, 66 units on 2 acres, all of them low income, with the impact on transportation, and particularly on schools, is very worrisome and not advantageous, I don't think, for me and my property value. However, I could also envision, in looking at this area, something that might meet the PDA requirements and be actually a win-win situation, which is some high-density, expensive, multi-million-dollar condos. Some of that land, some of that land has a 360-degree view, looks head on the city, looks at Mount Sam, and you have 50 of those.
That's already there.
What would that accomplish? Then you have 50 of those units, then you have the requisite 20% on the county for low income, and you have 10 scattered, not compact, not as in a ghetto, 10 low income units. You've got 60 units, 50 of which are market rate, high end, but dense, expensive, nice looking condos. They look lovely in the middle of anywhere.
No, they don't.
But
What would you accomplish if this is voluntary? What are you why would you
because then
compromise?
we get whatever federal state money.
We don't get it. We don't get it. We don't get the money.
Yes.
And they're not even entitled to it. And that's one of the big things that people who are writing are saying, you can apply for a grant. And this is for transportation money. And the big dollars that I was hearing was maybe 3 million or maybe 10 million, which is not that much money when you're looking at the impact to a community that is going to be responsible for figuring out traffic, water, sewer, everything else.
And you also have to know that the Board of Supervisors, there is nothing in writing. There is no guarantee that that money will be spent in Strawberry. It goes to the Marin County Board of Supervisors. They have many, many constituents. They can use that money wherever they want.
So some
If
people.
they get it, if they get it.
The problem with
can raise more.
Let's
Kidding.
let's try to get
Let's just
some
raise
court
Does existing
Yeah, you guys, if you'll raise your hand, Stacy and I will call on you one at a time, and if you would, for the benefit of everybody else, something I'm learning, introduce yourself with your name.
Sir?
Jerry Hines. Does existing Strawberry zoning have to be changed for this PDA to go forward?
Yes.
Who changes the zoning?
The Board of Supervisors.
Sears said no.
She said that she doesn't have to change the zoning.
I believe she said that there was no single-family housing that would be changed. That was one of the things that she clearly stated, was that no single-family housing zoning would be changing. And I think therein, because there were certain people who were asking that very pointed question. So one of the things that tends to happen is that oftentimes there's an answer given for a subset of what it is. So I would look again at that, I'm not sure, but
Is that what she said?
Her letter says there's no requirement for a change in zoning, and about 4 paragraphs later, she says high-density construction will require a change in zoning. So
Okay,
she's
so
speaking
I have
on
to
both
be, I
sides
have
of
to
it.
be the, we'll pull my lawyer for all thing here.
Why
So
don't
here's
you
the
ask
thing.
the
You're right,
planning
it's not required, well, I'll say,
member of the planning
They're here.
I don't wanna
Right
put him,
here.
he's not here, he's here as a resident, not an expert, as I understand it, which,
He
I
just
mean, if-
vote-
I don't wanna put you on the spot, but I
Why
do wanna
not?
say this,
Why
it's
not?
like,
Why not?
it is
Why not
not
here?
required, this is the language, is the Plan Bay area does not require the local government to do anything. It's voluntary, it's not required. She's absolutely right. This does not require that. But if they do so voluntarily, which they are, then there you go.
You're wrong.
And we're wrong?
You're just dead wrong.
Hey, could we
What-
not have people yelling it
Yeah.
out and answer with
Raise
hands
your
up,
hand.
like
Yes.
this gentleman here?
My name is Philip Escara. I'm a 47-year resident of the Strawberry, and that is the point. But we received the other day a letter from a neighbor announcing a meeting on the same subject, I'm sure. But it wasn't what they said, but in the left-hand corner of his letter was either photograph or artist rendition of the maybe, I lost count, but I think about 15 stories high. And that's all I have to say on the budget. So, talk your hound off the hill.
Well, and I, oh, go ahead, sorry.
You're volunteering.
Yeah, I'm John Eller, and I am a 12-year resident of Strawberry, and there are a few things that perhaps I can share in the information gathering that you're attempting tonight. And if I misspeak, my friend Bruce will correct me, or at least challenge it. Bruce, I will say, has been representing all of you extremely well. He's a long-term resident, as he was introduced before. He's been at every meeting on Strawberry Design Review Board relative to the seminary. He's been to every meeting at the Planning Commission relative to housing element and other issues. And you all owe him a debt of gratitude. Yes, I am a planning commissioner. It is a volunteer position. I applied for that position based on my 35 years being an architect with a practice in housing. I've done everything from affordable housing to luxury housing, done projects all over the world. My projects run from 3 units of affordable housing to 1,000 units of the most expensive housing in America. So I think I know housing. The letter that was circulated, that was just referenced, with the 15-story building,
That's not a letter
is
from ours.
a misrepresentation. In answer to your question, what does 30 units perhaps look like on an acre of land? Go down to Corte Madera. Corte Madera has 79 units at 33 San Clemente Drive. That is Ecumenical Association for Housing project that is 28.8 units to the acre. This is a project that would satisfy the requirements of the state for high-quality, dense housing.